Hi, everyone, and welcome. We'll be beginning in just about a minute or so hang tight. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our webinar, The Business Essentials of Cybersecurity, or what we like to call what every business owner needs to know about cybersecurity. That's a mouthful. Before we begin, let's go over some basic housekeeping. We're sensitive to your time, and we're aiming to bring this in around 45 to 50 minutes. Depending on the Q&A, we'll definitely be finished up by noon. While your individual phone lines are muted, if you have any questions along the way, simply click on the raise hand icon and type in your question. We'll do our best to address it quickly. So that said, let me introduce you to today's speakers and give you a little background about us. My name is Bob Niekamp, and my primary responsibilities include managing our vendor relations, staff certification and training program, and procurement. In addition, I've been at FPA for a number of years now, more recently in the role of determining and defining our cybersecurity solution packages. Craig Pollock is the founder and CEO of FPA. He's been working in IT consulting with clients, developing software, implementing solutions, and managing technology for small to mid-sized businesses for over 25 years now. With a degree in computer science, specifically application development, he began as a software engineer developing financial and accounting systems, while over the years growing FPA into one of the most respected IT service providers in Los Angeles. While running FPA, he also acts as the outsourced or virtual CIO or CTO for a select group of clients. His knowledge and experience is one of the reasons FPA specializes in the investment advisor, CPA, and manufacturer and distributor vertical markets. He's active in the industry, speaks at industry events, has been on a number of podcasts, and has a number of articles published. Now let me give you a little background about FPA. We've been in business for over 27 years and have approximately 25 employees. We have our own dedicated network operations center, or NOC, where we run our clients' networks from. One of our mantras is business before technology. To us, this means we focus on the business aspects and value proposition technology brings to our clients' businesses. It's not about technology for technology's sake. We really believe in our core values, and core value number one is simple: take care of the client. We believe that if we're doing this, everything else will fall into place. And lastly, we truly believe that IT has been shortchanged for far too long. To us, IT the way it's supposed to be means delivering high quality, timely, and cost-effective IT services for our clients. This may seem like a marketing tagline, but we believe that for far too long, mediocre IT has become the norm. We really do believe that high-quality IT adds to the success and ultimately the value of a business, and our goal is to deliver on this promise. FPA works with a number of clients in the greater Los Angeles area, but specializes in working with registered investment advisors, CPAs, business managers, and manufacturers and distributors. We have clients who we started with when we opened our doors 27 years ago, as well as clients we got just last month. We specialize in implementing and supporting technology for small to mid-sized businesses who primarily look to leverage technology to improve their business performance. Interestingly enough, beyond our technical expertise, our systems and processors, our methodologies, and our incredible staff, we believe our success is all about the how we do what we do. And providing learning opportunities like this webinar, where we can share our knowledge and experience around topics like cybersecurity, only helps to add value to our clients. And all that being said, let's dive in and start talking about cybersecurity.
Good stuff. Thanks, Bob. That was a great intro. So, as Bob said, cybersecurity, fun stuff. I think it's important stuff, and obviously we really take this seriously, and the whole purpose of this webinar is really to share the knowledge and elevate the conversations with our clients. So, that being said, we wanted to start, leveraging Simon Sinek in his famous book, Start With Why. So why are we here? Basically, what are we seeing out there? Well, we're seeing a lot of different things and a number of different things and a number of different viewpoints and people's perceptions and all that sort of fun stuff. And so we thought that we would start out with just talking about what we're seeing. So what we're seeing a lot of is that cybersecurity basics just really aren't fully understood by owners and C-level of businesses, right? A lot of times it's just left to the IT department. Cybersecurity is oversimplified way too much. Cybersecurity is being confused with ongoing management and support. I thought this was already being done, or isn't keeping our network up the same thing as securing our network? And hopefully today we'll paint a picture about what some of the differences are between those two sort of footprints. And a lot of what we're seeing out there, cybersecurity is being sold, quote unquote, by unqualified companies. Without peeling it back too much, it really is a huge push by the vendors out there. Anyone and everyone is out there pushing different cybersecurity solutions, and the vendors aren't really helping in terms of clarifying how to make this fit into an overall business perspective and how to really secure networks overall and secure businesses. It's really been, what we're seeing is just really pushed as a sales ploy. And so there's a lot of companies that are pushing this out. And so that's one of our concerns, is that not to over commoditize what's being delivered, but it's almost providing a false sense of security that, hey, if you get X, you'll be secure. And that's hopefully what we'll try to educate around today. Another really important point is that cybersecurity isn't about somebody looking to get your information. And so oftentimes we've heard stuff like, people don't want our data. We're not that big. It really doesn't matter. And the reality is cybersecurity is not about some hacker out there looking at your specific business. What it is a hacker that's spreading a huge net and hoping they catch something and turning it into a financial windfall. That's really what they're looking for. So you could get hit by that unknowingly in a number of different ways. And again, that's what we're hoping to address today. And so ultimately, cybersecurity and our position around cybersecurity is about protecting your business. It's not just about protecting your technology. It's not just about protecting your network. It's really about protecting your business. And so hopefully we'll answer those questions and help present cybersecurity at a high level in hopefully not too technical terms. We don't want to lose people, but we really want to get the overall concepts across and at least start the conversations so we can be having educated conversations with our clients, and for other businesses out there being able to have educated conversations with their IT departments and with their IT companies and being able to hold them accountable in a better way. And what I mean by that is, the other day I was having a conversation. I was introduced to somebody at a dinner, and of course I'm the IT guy. As soon as I say that, right, the tears come out and the floodgates open. Oh my God, we're dealing with a ransomware situation right now, and it's horrible, and they want us to pay $1 million, and we don't have $1 million, so we can't pay it. And so what do? Well, we go back to our backups and find out that our backups aren't good, and we lost 2 years worth of data, but we're still in business, but we're 2 years behind. And all of that really, from our perspective, can be mitigated by just having a basic understanding and really at the owner level and at the C level, owning the concept of cybersecurity and not delegating it out. Really holding your IT staff, IT company, who you're using for IT, accountable to really report to you and making sure that that type of situation doesn't happen, because it's so easily preventable. That's the frustrating part, is hearing about these things after the fact. And I will chime in that, that wasn't a client of ours. Knock wood. I couldn't even tell you how long ago one of our clients has been hit with a true ransomware. It's easily been months and months and months, if not, a year or more. So anyway, this is why we're having this conversation. This is why we think it's so important. This is hopefully, some of the areas that we want to address during this. So what will you learn today? Our goal is to provide a high-level overview of cybersecurity. Basic background and misconceptions. We've talked about some of those. What are the standards? What do they mean to your business? What are the 20 recommended cybersecurity controls that are starting to come out nowadays? What are the current risks and what are the impacts to your business? What are the layers of protection and how best to move forward to address your cybersecurity posture? So really, again, a high-level overview, setting the framework for what's going on out there, how to look at this, some of the buzzwords, how to talk about it, and again, hopefully a very educational experience for everybody who's attended. That's our goal. So what is going on out there? If you look at what's going on in Google, these are current searches that we did, right? Just doing a quick search in cybersecurity news, right? You'll see things like the auto industry says cybersecurity is a significant concern as cars, blah, 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 blah. We all know cars are so much more computerized right now. It's crazy how much cars are computerized, but all of our devices, all of the things, as we get more and more technology, more and more computers are going to be in that. So the important takeaway from this is, while this is a huge thing and this is a current thing, I also don't want the misperception out there or misconception out there that, hey, they're only going after big entities, right? They're only going after the car companies. No, that's not the case, right? If we look at ransomware attacks, again, the city of Baltimore, I don't know if anybody's heard about this, but the other day the city of Baltimore got hit and literally shut down thousands and thousands of computers. Google shut down their email. They wouldn't let the city of Baltimore get it together until they got this ransomware attack dealt with. Again, a big ticket item, but it isn't because they're going after it. It's because they happen to be hit by it. And lastly, right, some of the small business things. If you look down here, cyber attacks increased by 59%. Is your small business safe? Right? And this is only a couple days ago. So this is just ongoing in the news. This is constant stuff that's going on. I can give you statistic after statistic after statistic, but that's not the point of this. It's not to scare you. It's really about educating you and sharing this knowledge around, no business is too small, and it's not about the big guys versus the little guys. It's just literally, are you online? Do you have a business? Do you have technology? If you do, you're a target. Period. End of story. As they say, it's not if you'll be hit, it's when. So what can you do to reduce the impact, to protect yourself, and to reduce the likelihood? That's what we'd like to talk about. So that being said, what do you need to know today? Just a couple of little, phrases here and there. I know Bob's been having lots of conversations with our clients. I've been having conversations with our clients and speaking around this. So there's just a boatload of stuff to know, right? The dark web, intrusions, two-factor authentication, phishing, CEO fraud, hacked, vulnerability testing, data leakage, malware. It's overwhelming, and I know it's overwhelming because it's overwhelming for us, and we get it. So I can only imagine if you don't and you don't live in this world, how either confusing it is, or you just kind of shut down and say, wow, this is just too much to know. I don't need to know about it. I'll just leave it to my IT guy. And we're not sitting here saying, hey, you need to learn the meaning of every single one of these concepts. No, that's not what this is about. We're not looking for you to become cybersecurity professionals. What we are looking for you to understand is that all of these things have different meanings. And ultimately what that means is there's different penetration points, there's different risk factors, there's different impacts, and so they all go into creating this cybersecurity footprint and how you secure your network, your technology, your information, and your business. That's really what this is about. So that being said, what is cybersecurity? Really, if we look at it, again, it's this whole huge undertaking. How can we communicate beyond just a bunch of words and phrases? What does that look like? And from our perspective as IT professionals, as cybersecurity professionals, as looking to secure our clients and as well as ourselves, and how do we deliver IT services in a secure fashion? What does that really look like? Well, at a high level, you have all these different layers, all these different components. And to paint a picture, this is one of the best infographics that we've run across to really kind of organize all these different layers and organize all these different pieces to cybersecurity. So first you kind of would start with the policies and, what's around sort of the soft concepts, right? So things like security awareness training, or penetration testing, or threat intelligence, or IT security governance, right? And security policies and procedures. All of that is kind of the soft stuff. Then you get into operations, which is a lot more around monitoring and actually operationalizing securing your network. So there are some things around here like a SOC NOC monitoring. And for those of you who don't know, SOC is Security Operations Center, NOC is Network Operations Center. So we have both of these here in-house. Our NOC has been in place for 10, 11, 12 years now. Our SOC is relatively newer, probably in the last year or two, really been investing in building out our Security Operations Center and really adding security as a organized, holistic approach as a component to our IT services. And so this is from the operational side. Then you get into kind of the nuts and bolts and all the different layers around the technology, where you have starting at the center, you got your mission critical assets, working your way out, data security, application security, endpoint security, network security, and then perimeter security. So again, lots of different layers, lots of different pieces. And the overriding factor here, again, is how do we communicate? There's a level of complexity here. It's not simply, hey, can you guys do a penetration test and tell us we're okay? Right? If you look at this, a penetration test is one component of all of this. So, that's oftentimes we'll have conversations and people will come to me and say, hey, we'd like to have a penetration test. Hey, we'd like to implement security monitoring. Or, hey, we'd like to have encryption. And, it's kind of like the patient, coming up with the way to deal with, a medical situation rather than leaving it to the professionals. It's, I've heard something, here's a buzzword, this is my understanding, can you go make it happen? And it's kind of backwards, right? It really should be, let's look at the whole landscape, let's see how this fits into your business, let's figure out what your risk is, talk about that from a business perspective and make sure that, the risk fits in with, your business goals and your approach, and then build out from there. So thinking about it in these terms, here are all these different layers, right? We've got the prevention side, we've got the operations side, we've got all the different security layers side. Now, don't forget, right? There's this latest thing out there called the cloud, right? So we got to add on a whole nother layer on top of that around public cloud and private cloud, right? Because they're two different delivery mechanisms. And some clients have things in the public cloud, Office 365, hosted, different hosted applications. Private cloud might be also hosted applications. It might be hosted desktop as a service and other components of your specific business. So each of these different layers address and different failure points, and they also address and add to the complexity of this whole concept of, hey, am I secure? Right? That's one of the most difficult questions we could ever get, and the most frustrating answers that I always have to give, and it frustrates the people that I'm talking to, is, well, it depends. So if you look at this chart, I think you could kind of understand where we're coming from, and we say, well, it depends. So that being said, what does all this mean, right? There's all these different components, all these different pieces, right? And the reality is this doesn't really fit for every company, and especially smaller to mid-sized businesses, right? When you're looking at companies that have 5, 10, 15 staff, 20 staff, 25 staff, 50 staff, right? Still, what does it mean? And it's less about the staff and it's more about your technology footprint, right? It's really about how are you using technology and what do you need to protect, and ultimately what the risk is to your business, and we'll talk about that and how to kind of put all of this in perspective. So again, so you know, we're not sitting here saying, hey, look at these 100 different touch points, we need to secure every single one of them. We're not saying that at all. What we are saying is, hey, there's all these different failure points, these different touch points, depending upon your technology footprint, your organization, your business, all of your goals. What makes sense here, and what are the things that will really make a difference, right? What can we take from 100% certainty that you know, somebody's out there, you're going to get hit, down to, hey, let's bring it down to 5%, or let's bring it down to 3%, let's bring it down to 2%, in meaningful ways that make sense from a cost-effective perspective for your business. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah, to piggyback on what Craig's saying here, what I really like about this graphic here is that it shows that there are multiple layers to this. You know, more often than not, we sit down with the client and they say, hey, what's the one thing that we can do to be safe from cyber criminals? And the truth is it's not one thing. You know, if I went to some of our investment advisors and I said, hey, tell me the one stock that I need to make $1 million, I think we'd get a lot of laughs. So the reality is from our perspective, this is a multi-layered approach. And we just want to educate everyone to understand that there isn't a quick fix. There isn't a one solution that will save you from everything that the internet can do. So this graphic really, it paints the picture that there are multiple layers to a cybersecurity, you know, position.
There. Great point there, Bob. All right, so moving on. What does that mean? So what that means is if you have an attacker out there, an outside threat trying to get through, what you want to do is make it as difficult as possible so that they get frustrated and go away. And we're oversimplifying this by saying there's a guy sitting behind a computer with a black hood on that you can't see, and he's sitting there just pressing keys trying to get into your network. That's not the way it works. The way it works is it's all automated. They're pinging thousands upon thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of IP addresses and networks every minute of every day. And as soon as they get into something, boom, they go to the next layer. Can they get through that? Yes. Boom. Okay. And as they whittle down and get to certain areas, that's when it becomes more intelligent. And that's when humans become involved. And so the end game is, how do you make it so difficult that they give up? Because there are so many businesses, so many people out there that really don't put in adequate protections. And again, we're not talking about putting in 20 different layers. But if you're coming from, you know, just your sort of basic foundational layers of running a network to what are the 3 to 5 things that you could put in that could instantly take you from 100% exposed down to 20%, right? You can make these huge inroads very quickly, very easily, and reduce your exposure in really meaningful ways. And so that's kind of the point of all this is it's not one thing, and it's about getting through these different layers. That's how it kind of works out. So that being said, right, what are the threats that you and we face out there? So here's going to be just an overview list of what are these threats. We all know about viruses and malware and what they can do. There's ransomware, there's phishing and CEO fraud, and we can go into each one of these and what they mean and how they impact or how they get into your network. There's hacking and breaches. There's brute force attacks. There's DDoS attacks. There's denial of service attacks. There's third-party vendor conduits. So if you're using a third party, or if you are a third party, that increases your risk, both from being exposed for somebody coming into your network, as well as you exposing one of your clients or one of your business partners if you're a third party to them. So on a side note here, if we remember some of the different breaches that have happened in recent history, one of the big ones was a Target breach, where Target lost 400 million or exposed 400 million plus credit card information, usernames, social security numbers, credit card information, all that sort of stuff. Well, huge breach, ultimately impacts everybody who's ever bought anything from Target using a credit card. But the reason I'm bringing this up is Target wasn't actually the breach. Target was the end result of the breach. What happened was one of these hackers got into the HVAC, the heating and air conditioning company of Target. They got into that company, piggybacked on their network because their VPN connection to Target wasn't truly a VPN and it was unsecured. They got into Target and that's how they got in, and they just went from there. So these are the sorts of things that, again, lead to this concept that it's a many-layered approach. There's lots of different attack vectors. There's different ways of getting in. Again, I don't want to overcomplicate what picture I'm painting here, but just knowing that there's all these different avenues for getting in just means we have to be vigilant in making sure we're staying ahead of all of these things. So two things. One is we stay ahead of them. Two, it's an ongoing task, because what you're staying ahead of 8 months ago could change in this time period now, or 3 months from now, when you take on a new third-party vendor, or you take on a new outsourced accounting company, or an operation company, or a marketing company, and they're connecting up to your network somehow, or they're sending information to you guys, or however it plays out, right? So that's the whole point, is there's a lot of different attack vectors, and these all add into how you go about protecting yourself. So there's simple things like lost or stolen computers, data theft, data leakage, right? If you have PII, which is personal identifiable information, PHI, personal health records, customer information, patient information, employee, intellectual property, all of that stuff. The Internet of Things has added a whole new level of complexity to this. And the thing is for us as technologists, this isn't complex. It's just adding an exponential number of touch points that have to be dealt with. So we can deal with all this stuff. We get it. We understand it. We've got our processes and procedures in place. We've got our checklist to make sure nothing falls through the cracks. But every time some new thing gets created out there, whatever that thing is, and the Internet of Things is one of those, it just adds to that complexity, adds to that size of that net that is going on out there. So, for example, Internet of Things is, I don't know if everybody's aware of what the Internet of Things is, but what it is, we're creating just regular old household devices now that are now connected to the Internet. So things like when you buy a refrigerator and it has an automatic, a connection to the Internet so you can order groceries online from it. Or you have light bulbs that you can control whether they go on or off from the Internet. Or, your Nest camera or the Ring camera, all of those things that you control from the Internet, all of those things create, use an IP address, connect to your network, and all have security components to them. And most of the time, people don't change, the passwords on those devices. And so they're readily available. Everybody out there in terms of, hackers know what the default passwords are, and they're going to be able to get into your network. So whether you think, well, I added this light bulb at home, it's not that big a deal, nobody wants my stuff, it's only my home stuff. The reality is somebody can get into your light bulb, go into your network, piggyback on your workstation when you're working remotely from home, get into your network, get into your client, steal their data, and now you're responsible because somebody who works at your office put in an Internet of Things light bulb. Crazy, but that's the world we're living in these days, right? So how do we go about protecting all this stuff? Again, that's our job. So there's the dark web, and then cyber terrorism, and lastly, the human factor, right? All this stuff is a threat. Crazy, right? I mean, how we live, what our environment is right now, the technology footprint, all of this stuff is the end result of how quickly technology has grown and become so prevalent in our lives. And, you know, for us, our viewpoint is the future of technology, and certainly technology support and the role that we play with our clients, security is just going to grow and grow and grow. That's the reality of it, because this is, you know, this is kind of the missing link. I don't want to oversimplify support and, you know, maintenance and uptime and performance and keeping your machines working, and everything else that goes along with being well-regarded and respected, and, you know, looking at the high quality of services that we deliver. But adding in a component of cybersecurity protection and increasing this component in terms of the overall footprint of technology is the future for us and our clients, without a doubt.
Without a doubt, and I feel like in 5 years from now, you know, cybersecurity will just be a part of our normal everyday life. You know, right now we're right on the beginning stages, but what's important for us is that you guys understand not where we are, but that this environment is constantly changing. And we need to not only know where we are, but where it's going. So it's very important to us to say, hey, this is starting to become a big deal, but in a few years from now, this is just going to be a part of everybody's life, and therefore we might as well get on the bus as soon as possible.
Right. So, again, lots of different threats. What does that mean? Well, what it means is there's definitely risks, and what are the impacts? So all of those things add into all of these different risks to your business, to our business, to my business. It's crazy, but this is the landscape that we're living in. More likely than not, we're going to be hit by this sort of cybersecurity instance as a business owner more than almost any other catastrophic event. And this is preventable, right? We can't prevent earthquakes, we can't prevent fires and floods, we can't prevent other things. But to some degree, we can reduce the significance, we can reduce the amount of impact, and we can reduce the exposure to our business if we just prepare for this. So, failure of mission-critical systems, downtime, productivity, loss of business operations, loss of data leakage, loss of computing resources, misuse of computing resources, identity theft, outright theft, reputational impact. And so for us and for our clients who are in the professional services industries, our CPA clients, our investment advisor clients, our legal firm clients, reputation is everything, right? If we lose our reputation, we can go out of business. And so if we're not doing all we can, and if we're not communicating that to our clients, that could be a huge red flag where ultimately we have to shut our doors. To me, that's almost the biggest risk out of all of this, is the reputation. And does it mean that we need to be afraid that, hey, if we're hit, we're going to go out of business? My point is, imagine having a conversation with your client base saying, we were hit, your information was exposed, and we didn't do enough to protect ourselves. That's a different conversation than saying, we were hit, your information was exposed, we did X, Y, and Z, we've met industry standard requirements, we're doing all that we can, and yet we were still hit. Here's what we're doing to further protect you. It's a different conversation. And that's the thing, is really trying to help put all of this in perspective and make sure that we're doing the right things to address this. So what else is there? There's copyright infringement, lawsuits and censure and fines, right? So again, something simple like my example earlier of the light bulb and the Internet of Things, and somebody coming into your network and then piggybacking on your network into somebody else's network, they find out about that and they sue you because it's your fault that you breached that. And do you have the proper insurance in place? Do you have cyber liability insurance in place? Is there, there's a difference between cyber insurance and a rider on your general E&O or EPLI insurance around cyber controls. A whole nother webinar, whole nother discussion, but we can talk about that. Again, to us, it's part of the whole picture. There's social media liability. Again, how are you protecting yourself from that? There are policies and procedures you can put in place. There's monitoring you can put in place. There's insurance to put in place. All of these things go to these, right? There's employees posting for you, employees posting while at work, right? So all of these things become your liability as a business owner or key decision maker at that business. What does this mean? What's the impact? The outright cost to your business, your response cost, and your reputation cost. All three of these things have huge, huge hidden costs, and not to say, not even to mention the potential of completely shutting down your business. And that's not a scare tactic. That's just, some of the facts out there. As they say, when somebody gets hit with a pretty significant cyber attack, I think the statistics are somewhere around 88% of businesses go out of business. And primarily for service businesses, that's because of reputation costs and loss of clients. So these are real and meaningful things that we want to help our clients get in front of. These are the risks and this is the impact. So what are some of the myths of cybersecurity, right? Cybersecurity is just an IT issue. Apple computers are impervious to cyber attacks. Mobile devices are immune to attacks. Antivirus software and a firewall is enough. The Internet of Things devices don't really pose a threat. And of course, last but not least, no one wants my data. Again, that has no bearing on the conversation. You're kidding yourself if you think that anybody's out there thinking of attacking you because of who you are. That's a very, very small percentage, 1/10 of 1/10 of 1% of anybody consciously going after your information. Doesn't mean they won't get to your information. It just means that that's not the reason, that's not the driver. Excuse me. So that being said, who are setting the standards? And with cybersecurity being so new, there's a number of different organizations, right? The U.S. CERT, which is the Computer Emergency Readiness Team, is part of Homeland Security. They put out some really great information on it. You got the SANS Institute, ISAC, NIST. Many people have heard of the NIST standards, the CIS, Center for Internet Security, the CIS20 controls. These are all, everybody's trying to figure out how to deal with this. And so there's a number of different bodies out there trying to set standards around this. That being said, that also goes to the difficulty in helping our clients because there isn't a standard. There isn't one standard. There are different standards depending on your industry, and even those standards are kind of nebulous, right? If you look at, for investment advisors, the SEC has recommendations, quote unquote, I'm using air quotes here, but they don't have requirements yet. They say this is what you should do, but they don't say this is what you must do. So still leaves a lot of things open for interpretation. That being said, the two biggest are NIST and the CIS. And the NIST primarily works with DFARS or defense contractors. So NIST has 5 layers, what's called identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. So it's a voluntary framework, but most defense contractors and third-party vendors who work with defense contractors use the NIST framework, and oftentimes we're getting called in to say, hey, we need to be NIST compliant. Can you help us achieve that? So what does that look like? Well, the NIST framework is built on these, like I said, the 5 different areas: identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. So it's almost like a timeline, a life cycle of how you deal with cybersecurity. Again, I don't want to get into too many details here. I want to be sensitive to time. So we've got these 5 different areas. Now, conversely, with the CIS security controls, CIS20 is more of a business approach and a framework. And what is the CIS20 looks like is, again, more around, we've got these 6 basic functions, we've got 9 foundational items or 10 foundational items, and then we've got 4 organizational items. And this is something that we're working with, a combination between the NIST framework and the CIS20 security controls. We are actually in the process of finalizing our own cybersecurity framework solution to help us and help our clients start having these conversations so that we can work through this process with our clients and get them as secure as possible and as secure as it makes sense for them, as secure as they want, within the risk tolerance that they have for their businesses. So these slides will all be available to you guys afterwards. Again, I want to be sensitive to time. We can go through all of these, but I think the more important concept is that we have these 2 different frameworks, looking at both of them and how do we go about addressing them in a meaningful way. Because really, the issue isn't, how to lock everything down. Because at some point, we're going to lock things down so tight that it makes maintaining and running your network so costly, and it makes actually using your components, your technology, so difficult that it's just not feasible for your business. So we got to find a balance between, actually using your computers and using the technology and the balance of securing them in a most appropriate way. And that's what we're hoping to come up with, and we're in the process of finalizing right now for our clients. So that being said, our approach, and most approaches are, it's a timeline. It's something that you approach, how do you increase your level of security over time? And there's 5 different levels: initial, developing, define, managed, and optimizing. So at this point, I'd like to throw out a poll to everybody and kind of get a sense of where everybody is at right now. So that being said, I'm going to throw this out really quickly. Having some technical difficulties at this point.
Well, I think what these slides do, Craig, is they show when it comes to cybersecurity, it's all about how much risk you're willing to take. And, we're not saying that everybody needs to do everything we're saying, but it's this basic level of, according to the type of business that you're in, how secure should you be? So, and this slide does a great job of explaining, it's a path, and at the very least, we need to get started. And how far we take it is dependent on how much risk you're willing to take and what type of business you're in. Exactly.
So that being said, here we go. We're going to launch this poll real quickly. So which best describes your current cybersecurity level of your business? All right, level 1, we're mostly dealt with this on an ad hoc basis. 2, we've started a formal program. 3, we have policies and procedures documented. 4, we have a strong cybersecurity controls in place. And 5, we have our technology systems fully dealt with. So if you can help us out, try to answer this quickly. Hopefully you're not, you're listening and actively being an active participant, and you're not all tabbing back and forth and working on something else. So you can get this addressed quickly and keep moving on Again, I want to be sensitive to your time here and try to finish up by noon. So we're at about 38% voted at this point. For those of you slacking or sleeping or enjoying a cup of coffee, hopefully you can get back to us quickly and help out the ones who've already answered. Okay, getting there. Hello, anybody? Bueller? All right, so we're in the essence of time. I think we're going to wrap it up at this moment for the poll. We'll come back. So we've got about 2/3 of the participants we got about 2/3 of the participants answered. So here we go. Oopsie. There we go. All right, so this is what we've gotten. 25% mostly dealt with this. None have started a formal program. None. 3, we have policies, procedures documented. 4, that's a great percentage. We have strong cybersecurity controls in place. Hopefully those are our clients in attendance. And 5, we have our technology systems fully secured. I would love to talk to you and have a clear understanding of what that means, but that's great. So thank you all for that. That gives us a good perspective of what's going on there. So moving right along, what does all this mean, right? So going back to this graphic, right, there's all this stuff. How do we secure it? What does this really mean? Well, the way that we look at it, we like to look at things as a layered approach. And I think we talked about this with some of you in the past. But we really kind of organize things, take the most important things, and group them together in a more organized approach. And this is the way that we approach our networks. This is the way that we approach our network here in-house, as well as our service delivery and how we deliver services to our clients. We're at these different levels. So to detail that out, this is the way I think it's a sort of an easy conversation going from base network protection, moving up to operational protection, core level of security, enhanced, and then addressing specific compliance requirements. So what really does that look like? Well, it starts with having a managed network, having managed services on your network so that you're patching things consistently, you're running things consistently, you're making sure your antivirus is protected consistently. Everything is very proactive in terms of how you're running your network. If you're running your network in such a way in what we would call a reactive mode where you only deal with stuff when it's broken, there's no way you can have a secure network if that's your approach is a reactive network. Building on that, you need to have a firewall with IPS, IPS being intrusion protection services that protects your outside intrusion protection. Adding on a layer of antivirus, anti-malware, adding on a layer of internet threat protection. For our clients, we prefer and we've recommended Cisco Umbrella. That prevents ransomware from coming in. Anti-spam, protecting your email. Having email protection is hugely important. Locking down things through the GPOs, through your password management, local admin rights disabled, number of other GPOs, making sure that, GPOs is what's called a group policy objects. That's how networks are controlled in the Windows domain. So having policies that are actual network policies in place that run, these aren't vaporware policies, these aren't written policies, these are policies on a network domain to lock things down to a certain degree. And then last of the basic network protection is what we believe are managed backup and disaster recovery. You have this, and you've got a very solid core approach to running your network and a solid approach to your sort of basic level of cybersecurity. For us, this is what we call the FPA stack. Every one of our clients is running on top of this. We won't take on new clients unless they agree to run their network this way. We've just found it so successful, and our clients have found it so successful in stabilizing. This is why, again, knock wood, and I'm knocking my head when I say that, we haven't, or our clients haven't been hit by a significant ransomware attack in I can't tell you how long it's been. Again, knock wood, that's a great thing. Again, between all of these layers and having a backup and disaster recovery solution in place, our clients have been well protected. So on top of that, you add on your base operational protection. What does that mean? Cybersecurity assessment, pen test, vulnerability test, cyber liability insurance, and policies and procedures. So that's more of an operational layer adding on top of that. To that, we then start adding on what are some of the actual components, solutions. These are things that a lot of companies, a lot of our competitors are out there selling one-off. And the reason they sell it one-off is because they're not approaching cybersecurity as a holistic approach. They're not approaching cybersecurity from the business perspective. They're looking for sales. They're looking to just sell a product rather than address a need. And so for us, we like to address things from a really, how is this protecting you? What's the ROI? How does this make sense? So the core level of network security, the way that we approach it is we have user training, dual-factor authentication, dark web monitoring. That adds a very solid layer of protection to your network. Adding on top of that would be the next level. Again, each one of these layers adds a layer of complexity, addresses a different level of risk, and obviously adds in an additional layer of cost. So it all depends on your industry, it depends on your risk tolerance, it depends on your size, and your technology footprint. But all of these areas go to the different layers of how to secure a network. So the enhanced level is network security monitoring, log file tracking and auditing, vulnerability penetration scans on a recurring basis. And on top of that, you have specific compliance requirements depending upon your industry, right? So you might need encryption software, you might need security assessments that go on an annual basis that you can report on and report to the SEC or report to the AICPA or report to your defense contractor clients. So this is the way that we recommend approaching cybersecurity, in a very layered approach, in a thoughtful approach, in a way that goes about filling the holes from the most meaningful and most cost-effective forward. Hopefully this explains that big diagram that we talked about earlier and all those different touch points, because a number of these things touch on a number of those things, right? And that's the beauty of it. With a layered approach, you can address a number of different threat vectors by one solution. So this is a layered approach. This is how we found some really great success with our clients. And this is the way that we think going forward security should be addressed. Now, is this the end-all be-all? No. I'm sure that we can add more things to this. I'm sure that over time we will be adding more things to this. But right now, this is how we're going about approaching cybersecurity for our clients, as well as building out the cybersecurity framework that we're going to be using with our clients to help them address this over time. So that being said, what's next? how do you guys move forward? So again, based on the NIST standard, we've got the five areas: identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. What does that look like? Well, moving forward, where do you stand right now? When have you last performed a cybersecurity assessment? What level of risk are you willing to accept? Moving on to the protect level, do you have a cyber-aware culture? Have you started building that in? What level of protection do you have in place? Are you having consistent status reviews with your IT service provider? Are you consistently, quarterly, every 6 months, every year, looking at your cyber security footprint and seeing what are you doing, what's new, what do you need to address, what can you tighten up, where does that stand in your business plan? Does your network have security monitoring currently in place? What are you doing to respond? Do you have cyber liability insurance in place? And lastly, to recover, make sure that you can recover, do you have a backup disaster recovery solution in place? So again, I think this is a really good action item checklist that you can use moving forward. Again, we'll make this webinar and the slides available to you guys afterwards. But this is how we go about approaching and believe how you should move forward. So that being said, I think we're going to wrap it up at this point with just a quick review. So what are the takeaways from today? Hopefully these are the takeaways that you got. Know that cybersecurity is complicated. It's constantly changing landscape. Have a systematic, methodical, and holistic approach to addressing your cybersecurity. Address cybersecurity as a layered approach over time. Technology alone won't protect you. You need to address the human factor. It's as much about your policies, procedures, and your culture as it is just the technology, right? You really need to look and start thinking about how do you create a culture of cyber awareness. Start by defining and documenting your policies and procedures. Work with a partner who understands and is experienced in cybersecurity. And lastly, for our clients who are on this, FPA is in the process of finalizing our cybersecurity framework process. We're going to be working with you over our quarterly IT status meetings, meeting with you to really build out and be able to document where you're at, where you want to get to, what does it look like, how are you doing, in a very holistic approach. So that's the way that we believe is the best approach for our clients and will ultimately provide you the safest computing experience. So that was the takeaways for today. Hopefully there's value in this for you guys. Hopefully that there were some good takeaways. That being said, one last note, take cybersecurity seriously, as the criminals are. Bob's over here laughing at me. So there you have it. That being said, we'll just open it for some Q&A and go from there. Do we have any questions out there? Anyone? Bueller? Somebody had a question about, what about cybersecurity insurance? Very open-ended question. Yes, for sure. You should have a cyber insurance policy. It should be separate. It shouldn't be a rider. If you have any specific questions about that, we'd be more than happy to take a look at that for you and see what you currently have in place. We work with a number of insurance carriers that provide it. Not anything that we're looking to sell, but we could definitely help you guys with that. So cybersecurity insurance, definitely schedule a call and go after that. If there are no other questions, I think we're at the point of wrapping things up. So that being said, Bob, take it away.
Well, we'd like to thank everyone for attending today's webinar. As Craig said, we'll be sending our ebook, The CFO's Guide to Cybersecurity out. And again, we just want to reiterate, guys, the number one goal here is that we want to start identifying, where you stand as a company and then proactively moving forward into the future. So if you have any questions or you'd like to speak with us about this further, here's Craig and myself's information, and we look forward to talking to you in the near future, guys.
Thank you, and we'll follow up with you soon. Take care.
See ya.
There were some questions.
Yeah, they were too late.
Yeah, we can follow. I mean, I can follow. I can call them.